Back again with another video. So let's talk a little politics and war, because there's a lot going on, and not even abroad. Seemed like President Trump, been busy, and now he's going after or declared war on the cartels, the Latin American cartels, as is quoted. So let's break it down. Now, according to the reports, Donald Trump is sending 4,000 troops, Marines, into the borderline in Mexico, the Mexican border. And he shut down the cartels, y'all. Pretty much. So what does this really mean? Well, from the reports, as mentioned, it said Latin American cartels. So that doesn't necessarily mean Mexico. Now, although the president of Mexico is sort of cooperating, I believe they handed over like 26 alleged lieutenants throughout the various Mexican cartels. So hey, there we go. But see, let me explain, because the whole premise that Trump is using to wage war on the cartels is the fentanyl. They're saying that over almost 500,000 people then died off fentanyl within the past year and a half. So fentanyl ain't cool. So let's not, before I even continue, I'm not pro drug, although I may be pro survival, but I'm not pro drug. So Trump or anybody destroying some fentanyl, I don't really give a damn, straight up. So that's that. And also keep in mind, with that being said, they're alleging that the majority of the fentanyl, or the what they call it, the pre-components, the ingredients, a lot of that is coming out of China. So there was a Mexico-China connection in terms of narcotics, and that's what I think the primary attention that the U.S. is on. They trying to wipe off China's interest in Mexico when it comes to that. Not only fentanyl, but probably everything else. So it's almost as if, and it's not necessarily to say this in a bad way, but the United States is taking over the drug market now. And we don't want no independent operators unless we say so. And I can't be mad at that, because that's one of the things in a smaller scale how we need to treat our community. You need to control the flow of what comes in and out, whether it be bad or good. And I said this numerous of times. I don't care if it's salt, diapers, milk, eggs, drugs, weapons, clothes. You need to have a say-so. And that's sort of what I think Trump is doing now when it comes to the whole fentanyl in the China-Mexico connection. Because let's keep in mind, and also the president of Mexico said this. She was like, well, it's the United States' fault because y'all fueling these cartels. And what she means by that is because for the longest, the United States was like the #1 consumer of cocaine. So again, wherever there's a demand, that's going to dictate the usage. So the war on drugs in the 80s, as we know, was a propaganda thing. And if the demand for drugs is still there, it's going to keep coming. So that's what she meant. She like, y'all buying most of it. So how can I stop the cartels? But remember, that's cocaine. That ain't fentanyl. So that's a message. But anyway, all in all jokes aside, and of course there's always a hidden hand and a hidden interest that we don't know about, but the premise is the fentanyl. And also the human trafficking, because according to the report, they said the cartels made like $2 billion a year on human trafficking. Now, words like that, me being a brother African American, I don't like that. Now, I understand that's not necessarily slavery, or not even necessarily kidnap, because a lot of times what happens is people pay the cartels to get them from Mexico or their country to out here, and from what I hear, the cartels charge them the high, and that's the deal. So the U.S. is supposedly cracking down on that, and hey man, I definitely ain't got nothing against that, especially people against their will. Now, if you trying to get here, man, hey man, that's all on you. But that's what's jumping off right now, man, when it comes to the American conflicts. And also, just to add in, because it's definitely a consolidation of power jumping off in a lot of ways. And I think the United States is unwittingly absorbing Mexico in this here. Because, Mexico too close to the U.S. not to. So, again, I mentioned as far as ICE recruiting and becoming a bigger organization, and I think ICE, and it's just my opinion, but I think ICE is going to start absorbing a lot of these law enforcement agencies within the U.S. That way, ICE, they can not only control in the U.S., but in Mexico, Central America, Canada, etc. Although I know Canada ain't too much feeling this move. I heard Canada, they just halted a big lumber shipment out here to the U.S. And that's, of course, money and politics to tariffs or whatever. You know what I'm saying? And Canada, like, man, we ain't trying to be a part of none of that y'all got going on. Part of none of that rabbit hole conspiracy. But Canada knows it's bigger than them, too. So this is what's going on. And that's what I think was really jumping off when it comes to the Trump declaring a war on certain cartels. Because keep in mind, they already done kidnapped or arrested El Chapo's sons, and I believe one of them, or maybe both of them, I forget, is cooperating. And cooperating, I don't necessarily mean, well, definitely finger pointing, and probably just his ops. And they may be, I ain't gonna say coordinating with the U.S. on equal footing, but it can all tie in somehow. Definitely logistically, informatively, and this is how the U.S. is able to track, not only through their own intelligence, but that's how they're able to pinpoint certain key strongholds or key chokeholds within the cartel, you know what I'm saying, to cut their water off and to get their attention. But hey, the cartel, like, hey man, we gonna strike back, man. And you gotta keep in mind, man, the cartel, man, a lot of them been trained by the U.S. and a lot of them definitely got ties within the U.S., been having ties, so them ties just don't cut. So this will, I ain't gonna say it's gonna be interesting, man, but it's definitely gonna get worse before it get better. And it's, in a lot of ways, y'all, it's a catch-22, because the premise before of why the U.S. didn't necessarily want to go after the cartels, because the cartels are pretty big in Mexico, in their respective Central American country, to where they employ a lot of people, even if it's a quote-unquote illegal business. A lot of them employ more people than the major corporations down there. So they saying if that was to happen, it would definitely be more of a mass exodus of people coming this way. So that always been the for a reason on the surface why the U.S. never did just openly say we going after all the cartels. And I'm not necessarily sure if Trump even said all the cartels, but he definitely said cartels. You see, this definitely ain't the first drug war or war on drugs the U.S. has fought. If you ask me, that whole Taliban campaign was primarily, that was the underlying reason. Yeah, you want to say terrorism, weapons of mass destruction, but nah, just coincidentally, Taliban, that's where all the heroin poppy grows. That's like the Iron Triangle. Like 90% of the world's H comes from that way. So, and you don't think the U.S. wasn't trying to sew that up? So, again, man, it's the fentanyl, it's the Chinese, Mexico connection. I believe that's why the U.S. military is down there, among other things. And I think just to keep a tighter lid on what's coming in and out the U.S. right now, for whatever reason. For whatever reason, now we can all elaborate and we can go down a rabbit hole because there's pros and cons to everything. But on the surface, y'all, this is what's jumping off, man. Trump, his official war on drugs. I think he did more damage than the Reagan administration against the war on drugs. Y'all, what y'all think, man? You know, and let me know, man, what y'all think this all mean, man. Especially, I know it's a lot of people, and I'm not advocating no illegal uses or nothing. But I know it's a lot of people in the game. They may see different. As long as the demand's still there, it's going to be here. For better or for worse, man. But y'all let me know what y'all think about what's going on, man. This Bad News Brown breaking it down. I'll be right back at y'all with some more of it.